Good morning from Zurich. You're listening to Monocle on Sunday with me, Tyler Brûlé. Coming up on today's program, Juliet Linley is here. Also a new voice around the table, Gabe Bullard. They've got their views on what's happening in the world news. We'll come to Gabe later, but Juliet, first, good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Where are we going for stories? Are we in the Vatican today?
We are in the Vatican.
Surprise, surprise.
I mean, we're going to ask ourselves, why is the Pope meeting Whoopi Goldberg, Chris Rock, and Jimmy Fallon in his backyard?
Okay.
And also, we're going to stay in Rome with Italy commemorating the killing and abduction by Mussolini thugs 100 years ago of an anti-fascist politician.
Very good. More on that in a bit. Also, our editor-in-chief, Andrew Tuck, will be in London for us, and we'll get the latest news on the European Union elections.
I'm Ed Stocker here in Milan, and in Italy they are still voting. The polls due to close at 2300 tonight. The big question really is how much gains the right and the far right will make, and we'll have a better idea of all of that later this evening and in the early hours of Monday.
Plus, Noah Horowitz, CEO of Art Basel, will be giving us all the details on the fair this year. It's its 30th edition. And it's also the 9th of June, 2024, live from Zurich. This is Monocle on Sunday.
Live from Zurich, this is Monocle on Sunday with Tyler Brûlé.
And good morning from Zurich. A rather cloudy, not so spring-like, certainly not a summer-like Zurich this morning. But nevertheless, there is sunshine in the studio because Juliet Linley is here. Also, Gabe Bullard, a new voice around the desk this morning. Gabe, maybe I'll start with you. You're a recent transplant to Switzerland. You've joined us from Washington, D.C., and you're doing your journalism gig out of Basel. How's that treating you?
So far, so good, yes. A few late nights keeping up with people on the East Coast or West Coast of the U.S., but overall, going pretty well, yeah. And
what's your beat? I mean, we're going to be, of course, talking a lot about Art Basel because we've got Noah Horowitz around the table, CEO. So we'll of course, be unpacking that a little bit later on. But what does your sort of daily journalism gig look like from your end of Switzerland?
A lot of cultural coverage, arts and culture around the area, working on a few pieces there, and then also television and film criticism as well as another cornerstone of it. Right.
Very good. Mm-hmm. Juliet, good morning.
Morning.
Again, nice to see you. How have things been? It's been weeks.
Yeah, it's been weeks. The weather's been pretty awful, and all we're doing is talking about it. But I have gone for a quick dip in the lake. Don't ask me how I stayed
I do not believe you.
Very quick.
But this is the first time.
Principle.
But this has never happened. Actually, this is.
Well, now that I live on a lake, I make a point of doing that. I know that when I moved here, I said I will never go in. Exactly. I only swim in the sea.
Yeah. And what was the occasion?
Just proving to myself that I could do it, because as Emma knows, we don't enjoy cold water swimming, do we, Emma?
Emma, do you have a view on that? This is news to me. I mean, you love all of the lakes of Austria, etc., Emma. So is this indeed true?
Yes, it's absolutely true. It has to be August before I'll put my feet in that water. But once I'm in, I'm fine. But the stuff that you engage in, Tyler, is way beyond my fathoms of my possibilities, I'm afraid.
Well, actually, listen, this was a very, very late season. I only jumped in the lake about 2 weeks ago for the first time because it's been rather chilly. Lake also incredibly high as well. It's coming down a little bit, but who knows? It's going to just bucket down this afternoon. So again, sort of a lovely Sunday ahead here as well. Andrew Tuck, our editor-in-chief, is also standing by in London this morning. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, and I'm a fully signed up member to the Warm Water Swimming Club as well. So
we know that, Andrew. We know that you're the CEO and chairman of that group. So listen, I mean, here's a question: have you been in the Med this year?
Yes.
Not have you had meds, in the Med.
I've had meds and been in the Med. I've done a double dip. No, I've been in the Med. I went actually probably 3 weeks ago, and it was really bracing. But I kind of pulled up my kind of sense of inner Brûlé, and I thought this is going to be okay. I don't mind the legs. It's that bit that goes above your trunks. That bit. Right. That's the bit that kind of gets me every time. And then once you're in, it's okay. It's that 3 inches from like top of trunk to beyond belly button, and you're God, no, that's not good.
Beyond belly button.
Beyond belly button. Yeah. But that's why you just have to go all in. Right, Tyler? You just take the plunge. And if you sort of creep in toe by toe, forget
what Andrew's saying in code. It's sort of like what you say beyond the bathers and
between the navel and the
tips of nips, or I don't know. Anyway. And what was the occasion? I have to ask, what was the occasion for you? Because you've certainly you've created your position within Monocle about, of course, being very much an anti-cold water. So why did you? And I assume this was in and around Palma. Do you have a special swimming patch around Palma?
Well, the thing about Palma is that there are actually lots of beaches nearby. But if you just get on the bus, and I got on the bus 15 minutes to a place called Cascatela, and it was very early in the morning. And there's a Bougainvillea, a nice place next door where you can get breakfast. And there was hardly anyone there, but there were all these like very confident old dears. I'm almost in that category now, anyway. But anyway, all these confident old dears kind of getting in the water, and I don't know, I felt a bit of an idiot just lying on the beach reading my book.
You had to join them.
If they can do it, I can too.
I went for it, and actually it was great, and I do it a second time, so it was good.
Okay, Andrew, let's start at your end of Europe this morning. Of course, elections on. We're going to be talking to our Ed Stalker in a moment in Milan. Much on the front pages about, of course, the elections on the continent across the EU, because, of course, there seems to be an enormous fallout, and maybe sort of bring everyone up to speed on, this quick exit by Rishi Sunak from the D-Day commemoration event.
Well, you can't imagine a kind of a worse manoeuvre. This event has been known about for years, and certainly for months. And here he is at the D-Day celebrations, and he decides to leave early to get back to the TV studios to give an interview, to talk about the election and get back to campaigning. And he leaves David Cameron, the Foreign Secretary, to take his place in this lineup of leaders there, honouring the dead. Now, the weird thing for Sunak is, that he is losing every constituency that you can imagine. It's really going terribly bad for him. But one of the biggest constituents that he has some cut through with is seniors, is people who, just the kind of audience that would be shocked by this behaviour, who the D-Day celebrations meant so much to, because they're maybe even themselves, but certainly their parents were part of that generation. So he's played it really badly, and he's having to dodge questions, and a series of other members of his party have had to come forward, and they don't find it easy to defend. In fact, they're not defending it. Penny Mordaunt was on this TV debate representing the Conservatives this week. It's supposedly the leaders' debate. No leaders turned up apart from Nigel Farage, and she said it was a bad decision. So he's in a very tricky spot. And it's interesting, I know you're going to be speaking to Ed later on about the European elections, and there is a bit of a cut-through connection here, because on that debate there were 7 leaders, and Nigel Farage was there. And I have very little time for Nigel Farage, because I was a pro-Remainer, and he's the architect of, in many ways, of Brexit. But the truth is that when he was asked questions, he just gave these very straight, from the heart, direct answers, maybe not nuanced, maybe wouldn't work in reality. But you can see why somebody like him gets cut through. When he was asked about stop and search, this is stopping mostly young men on the street to see if they have guns or knives on them, especially knives, he said, bring it back. Let's just do it. Now, all the police forces are cautious about it. It's caused endless problems when badly used. But he gave a straight answer to everything. So it's interesting. Sunak, Starmer dodge around on some of these questions. And it is interesting to see how Farage will do.
And Andrew, just, we're a few weeks away from all of this. And also there is, I guess, a lot of speculation that Sunak may not even, may be able to maintain his seat as well. National mood, your sense of just exasperation because no one's that excited about Keir Starmer anyway, but again, it's incredibly close now until polling day.
Well, it's interesting. I don't think Starmer is a politician who gets people excited, but he this morning has it's been leaked that they will announce in their manifesto that's coming this week that there will be no tax rises in the key categories, so in national insurance, in income tax, or in VAT, because he wants to dispel this one thing that the Tories keep on coming back to, which they claim that under a Labour government, every single person would pay £2,000 more per year in taxation. So he's going to try and kill that, just the way that Blair did it in his election campaign. many, many years ago. So I don't know. So there's not a huge amount of excitement, but he's seen as reasonably reliable. And I think that just the way that the tide is pulling away from the Tories in recent days and weeks has been extraordinary. So there were some predictions in the paper this week that the Tories could end up with 60, 70 seats, which is unbelievable when you think that they did win the election just 5 years ago.
It's extraordinary. Juliet, let's go to another European capital. Let's go to Rome. You teased at the top of the program. I mean, a couple of things coming out of Rome. Maybe we'll come to the Pope and comedy when we jump into the Vatican in a moment. I don't know if you want to start there, if we want to go
Do you
back
want to start at the Vatican?
Well, we can go down memory lane and go.
Let's just get Whoopi Goldberg out.
Okay,
of the
let's
way.
get Goldberg.
So he's invited about 100 comedians from 15 different countries because, as the Vatican press office put it, the Pontiff recognizes the impact that the art of comedy can have on contemporary culture, and laughing has a unifying effect. Yay! So I saw that headline and I thought, yeah, but like, what comedians are coming? And then you see that Jimmy Fallon, Stephen Colbert, Whoopi Goldberg, Conan O'Brien, Chris Rock, they're all coming over to the Vatican. I mean, okay, it is always nice to go to Rome, as we all know. But still, I was pretty impressed that they're all going to be there. So he has quite pulling power. And then just a few days ago, Roberto Benigni was there for an event on World Children's Day. I think this is the first. But it was quite a moment because I was looking at the footage that the Vatican media put out. And you have Benigni standing there with his microphone in the middle of St. Peter's Square. The Pope is sitting there and he starts saying, like, when I was a kid, people would say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I want to be the Pope. And everyone would start laughing. And he says, well, that's when I realized how funny I am. And that's why I'm a comedian. And then he goes, the Swiss Guards. And he's looking around. And he goes, they told me I can do anything in this square except touch the Pope. So you know what? He runs over to the Pope and gives him a kiss. And he says, so I'm just going to give the Pope a kiss. And look at me, how happy I am. Anyway, classic Benigni. Bit slapstick, but yeah.
Okay, so you've given us laughing. Okay. You've sort of mostly name checked U.S. or people who have made their name in the U.S. anyway as comedians, but it's a global lineup as well. So
from 15 different countries.
Any Germans in the mix? Any good French?
We'll check Swiss comedians. I know Lithuanian, Estonian comedians. Yeah. We'll check that and get back to you on
Trinidad?
It. Good question.
Right. We'll have to find out. Okay. But let's go to the other story though. Out of Italy as well.
Yes. So Giacomo Matteotti. In every Italian city, you will always have a Piazza Matteotti, Via Matteotti, and nowadays it's not clear to the younger generation who is this Matteotti. You just know there's Ponte Matteotti in Rome, and there is a little commemorative thing hidden behind a bedraggled bush, as often is the case in my home city. But so he was a socialist politician from a landowning, wealthy northern Italian city, and he's come to symbolize the violent essence of fascism. He was an elected parliamentarian. Just 10 days before he was kidnapped and assassinated, he had spoke out in the Montecitorio Parliament about alleged fraud that the fascists had committed in the general election that year. And so what happens is that Mussolini orders his abduction, his killing, denies it, meets the widow, promising to track down who did this terrible thing. But I think what the columnist in La Repubblica that I was looking at, he was saying was that, ieri come oggi, yesterday like today, let us not forget. And I think that's very much the point, although Giorgia Meloni, who does come from a clearly fascist background, she has done so much to distance herself from the violent aspects of the past of the squadristi and Mussolini's people.
And as we said, we'll be talking to our Ed Stalker in Milan in a moment, because there's also some other aspects of about Signora Meloni that we're going to also discuss. At least her trips down to the fruit stand. No, we are down to the fruit stand as well. Gabe, you had a story for us as well. Maybe people have not been across some of the comments that Spotify's Daniel Ek made.
Yes.
But he's gotten up a few people's noses on the topic of the cost or not the cost of creativity.
Exactly, yes. So he had posted, among other thoughts, to Twitter about thinking about how the cost of content creation is near zero at this point. And a lot of artists were very quick to shoot back and say, well, it didn't cost me nothing to make my album, to make my song, that there's a lot of work that goes into it. He issued an apology and clarified that he meant it he was talking about the tools, but I don't think that really has mollified a lot of artists who say, the cost of the equipment is one thing, but it's very difficult to hear the CEO of a company who is distributing music, one of the most powerful players in the industry, reducing this art form basically to the cost of buying some computer equipment.
Yeah. Also, Andrew, I want to bring you in on this. It's a curious one, isn't it? Because also, you talk about content creation not being expensive, but also they themselves also cut back on their podcast output, a lot of their own production as well. Andrew, a bit rich, no?
Yeah,
or not?
He's completely rich. Our opinion on this, Tyler. So we talk about the media in the round, and I think this is just an example again of people being a bit hypercritical.
No, indeed. Andrew, and Emma, one for you as well, because this is something that Juliet, of course, just brought up when she was in Italy. But you talked about the Bedraggled Bush. Is that a pub? Emma...
I can't answer that, Tyler. If I have been, it's been quite a while since I've been in it.
I don't think I've ever been to
I've never been in the I've never been in that. No, no, no. I've never been.
Okay. Maybe because we're going to go on to a story as well, because you've got something for us, Gabe, also on AI and also Google as well, and maybe again a little bit of cutback, but maybe in terms of search. No.
Yes. So Google had rolled out this AI overview where they're getting these generative text responses to search results. More people were seeing them, and more people were reporting very strange results. Things like asking for a pizza recipe and having glue listed among the ingredients, which is generally not advised. And so Google has apparently already been scaling some of these back before some of the higher profile mistakes or hallucinations, as they call them, showed up. But I think that, some people are celebrating and saying, okay, this is Google maybe hearing us and wanting to go back to more of the traditional search results. But I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I think this is just going to drive a push for maybe more deals with publishers to get better citations, for continued refinement. I don't think that AI is going away just in the face of perhaps a few laughable mistakes here.
But Andrew, this is something we've come back to because we always talk about who's in the metaverse still and what happened to that moment, and who's in Clubhouse and that's gone away, and now I sometimes wonder how quickly or how long the season of AI is going to be this defining topic at every major summit, at every speech, at every AGM. Maybe we'll be out of the season by the time we hit September or not. I don't know.
Well, just a few months ago, we began to see people launching new services that were going to be completely generated by AI. I don't know of any of these that have had great cut through. Even now, people, they turn on their TV to see the great anchor. They still read the newspapers, even if it's online, because they have a favorite columnist that they want to know the sports results, but told in a way that has a narrative to it. And I think that most of the people we know, Tyler, in media who are running good, interesting news organizations, they still believe that the place for nuanced, skilled reporting on the ground won't be replaced by the summary services that AI is good at. But for some things in the background, you can imagine it is going to be used. So is your letter to the editor going to be answered by AI? Maybe, but certainly not by me. But that's the kind of thing you can imagine some big organizations using it for process pieces and things, but I can't see how it's going to really nudge out the way journalism and the idea that somebody on the ground telling a story is going to be replaced by AI is impossible.
No, and also I was talking to our correspondent in Tokyo, Fiona Wilson, just 2 days ago, and she said that she got sort of caught in some sort of chatbot nightmare. She said I had no idea it was someone really sort of at the end of this chat she was having or not, clearly not, and said that she was ready to sort of fling something at any monitor that was near her. And it's fascinating though, isn't it? Because I was just also thinking about the column I wrote in today's weekend edition, just about what happens when you actually throw people at a problem, and what that can do in terms of in a positive way, also turning around what is otherwise or potentially could be a bad brand experience. And I'm wondering, I mean, just maybe I'll throw this open to all of you. I mean, Juliet, do you think that we're in a position? I'm always amazed, actually, in Switzerland, how many people are always at the end of the phone, how much solicitation happens in Switzerland over the phone still, and also that you can
love it.
You can still actually go.
I actually go to the Swisscom shop.
No,
and
you
I
can
stand
actually
there in line, and I just say, "Fix my problem now."
Fix my problem, and then there are people who
and they're so happy
do it
to, because not that many people come in, and I think I'm the youngest because all the others are all like 70 plus. Poor things, because if we find it overwhelming sometimes to just keep pressing that button and then insert this code and that code, as you wrote in your column, imagine for your parents' generation.
Well, yeah, I was like,
or your grandmother.
Well, yeah,
does she use a mobile phone?
Grandmother's not using a mobile phone.
She's on TikTok.
But she's definitely on TikTok. But it is, Andrew, just there as well. Do you think that we move or we shift, and Emma, I'll pull you in on this one as well. As much as we sort of talk up a good game about how we want to bring everybody along. I mean, I was in a phone tree the other day that said the waiting time was 40 minutes. I mean, seriously, it's like immediately, what does that say about a business if you cannot? And this is on there's been no technical meltdown that I know of. That's just sort of the standard waiting time, and should people accept that?
Well, it's. Your column was great because it is exactly that. I think that you threw up a few interesting points here. First of all, occasionally you see that person in the corner of the screen. It says, "Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm online now. I can help you." And it's a bot, and you ask a very basic question like, where do I log in for X on my banking account? And then it comes back with a completely random answer because there is no person there. And if that's, until that's more sophisticated, I don't think that people are going to enjoy that process. And the other thing I hate about it is like, you get caught in these kind of, if you would like to press 1, whatever, and then it takes you through so many stages and then it throws you out at the end because it has nowhere to take your question. So I think that the need to find somebody at the end of the phone is vital, and as you said, I don't think it's even just older people. I think there's lots of young people who get super frustrated going through on those processes because you just don't know where to find somebody who can often answer the most basic of questions.
Gabe,
well, I think so, and I think that we are starting to see more and more of a generalized frustration against this, especially when we're seeing it coming from some of these big platforms. When you see the errors that are coming out of something like Spotify, because they are relying more on AI and have laid off a lot of people. When you see that the Google results are worse. There's a not so nice term that is sort of circulating around some tech skeptic circles out there for this, but I think people are noticing that these services, as they become more automated, are becoming worse and are getting fed up with it and not accepting it in a way that maybe, the encroachment of ads onto a lot of news sites, that sort of thing. Maybe people were a little bit more near to that, but now I think that there is a generalized pushback and less satisfaction with this.
No, completely. And bringing up Spotify, we have a family Spotify account.
Mm-hmm.
I somehow can't access it. So I'm the only one who's getting 900 ads every second. Who do you phone?
Why haven't you bought the premium service?
Why would I want it?
Well, okay.
I don't want the ads.
And the price keeps going up.
The what?
And the price keeps going up.
There's nowhere to phone. Who do I go to? There's no Swisscom shop I can walk into. And I had the same thing with Wizz Air. I had the big mistake of flying Wizz Air to Morocco. It was the only direct flight from Rome to Marrakesh.
From Rome to Marrakesh, okay.
Hideous. And there is no helpline. And I was looking up let me just call the helpline in Hungary and see if someone picks up. No, impossible to talk to a human being. Never going to fly with them again.
Okay, but what happened? What was the problem?
One of my children's passport details couldn't get uploaded.
So you left the kid at the gate?
Yes. Yeah, it was a great holiday.
Wow.
One less kid. I mean, who's so attached to their children?
Emma, and have you flown Wizz Air?
No, but I have been part of the
I was going to say, you love Vienna. I think Vienna's actually it's not their hub as of course, as Juliet was mentioning, they've almost become the unofficial carrier of Hungary now. But this is the chance for you, Emma.
I absolutely can't wait. Just briefly going back to the AI chatbot thing, I'm one of the poor souls who has to pay their taxes to the British government part of tax collecting. It's called HMRC. And a few weeks ago, it said that there were 8, on average now, people in trying to get through to the phone line have clocked up 800 years of waiting to try to get through to HMRC. And then when you get through to a real person, they haven't been trained to do what they do. And so that you may as well get through to a bot. But I really quite like what Gabe was talking about, how automation has got worse. And because we're more automated, but things are getting worse. But if you talk to any sort of CEO or sort of like any technical C-suite people, they'll be saying, this is amazing. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be transformative. And you do get this real sense of emperor's new clothes stuff coming through.
Well, we're going to be talking a lot about Basel in the second half hour of the show. But I was going to say, in my column, I talk about Frau Schneider, who is at the Swiss core customer care desk. And she was able to book my flight, sort out everything in 2 minutes flat, answered the phone in one ring. So they know something about running a call center in Basel. So listen, I can say that to anyone assembled around the table, Andrew, if we also need anyone on customer service out of London, maybe Frau Schneider's got like a bit of free time on her hand as well. Andrew, just before we go, just this coming week, Paris, well, let's just say, is your pen ready? Are you ready for these two signings that we have coming up in Paris this week?
Yes, this isn't the office signing. This is the book signing. So we have two events in Paris, one at Setel and one at Bonjour Jacob. And I'm really looking forward to being back in the city. And how great that we're going to have this office opens officially in a couple of weeks' time. But our presence there already means more trips, more visits to the city. So yeah, I'm super excited. They're going to be good fun.
Yeah, so any listeners, if you happen to be in Paris during across Wednesday, Thursday, you can drop us a note if you'd like to swing along. I think they're both quite oversubscribed. But Andrew, as you said, Set L, the more sort of bobo chic version on Rue de Lille, and then Bonjour Jacob, the land of Canal Saint-Martin, a little bit more funky. Andrew, we look forward to seeing you, of course, over there a little bit later in the week. Just gone at 10:30, almost, 20 seconds late for the news headlines with Emma Nelson.
Thank you very much indeed, Tyler. Israeli forces say 4 hostages abducted by Hamas on October the 7th have been rescued from a refugee camp in central Gaza. Hamas says Palestinian bodies littered the streets after the operation. 20 million EU voters go to the polls today on the final day of the European parliamentary elections. There's widely expected to be a surge in votes for the far right in key countries such as France. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is expected to be sworn in for an historic third term later today. Mr Modi's BJP party did not secure enough votes for an outright majority and will now govern as part of a coalition. And an update on the situation in Alcudi in southern Italy, where feral goats outnumber humans by 6-1. On the volcanic island. This month, a crack team of wildlife experts will be swarming the volcanic cliffs, rustling the goats down to the island's port and hoisting them onto a ship heading to Sicily. Locals fear the goats will be more than capable of putting up a fight, however. That said, the islanders have now taken things into their own hands, with gunshots heard regularly and everybody's freezers now full. And those are the headlines. Back to you, Tyler, in Zurich.
So I might just have to say first, you were across the story months before the New York Times. The New York Times had quite a big piece on this last week as well, but you've been following this story, and I don't know, we're going to be talking to Ed Stalker in a moment. We should probably be dispatching him down to the Aeolian Islands to see what happens, because of course, as they were saying, there's going to be a huge fight back. That these goats have also, they've really changed personality as well, and they sort of talked about the transformation of these goats. They're so fierce now, and of course, as you said, the people are going to round them up. Huge issue, huge problem. Of course, the goats have a lot of defenders now as well. Are they going to be treated well? But here's the amazing thing. Within Italy, they're going to have to go into a certain quarantine because you're going to be able to adopt them. Also, I think some of them are going to Sicily. Juliet, maybe some are going to also end up in your stretch of Italy as well.
I think curried goat is on the menu here. Is that what you're referring to?
Does the family have a good recipe?
I'll get back to you on that one.
You'll get back to us on that one. Okay.
But I feel that Emma Nelson should be the chairman of the International Save the Goat Foundation, because we have never covered so many goat stories as on the Monocle on Sunday show. I think Tyler's nodding.
Yeah, I've got some gardening that I could use some help with. So
yeah, I don't know if they're going to let them into Switzerland, but it is.
Gabe is applying.
But I'm also, from a news gathering point of view, it's incredible how much attention the story has had. Whether La Repubblica has been there, have they sent a satellite truck from Rye? I don't know if you can get a truck onto onto the island even. But nevertheless, anyway, Emma, maybe you can even have an update for us in 27 minutes before we reach the end of the program. Let's stay in Italy right now. Our Ed Stalker is standing by, our correspondent, of course, and our man covering much of the European beat. In Milan this morning. Ed, good morning.
Good morning, Tyler.
Do you have any good updates for us as well? I'm surprised that Andrew has not dispatched you to get on that story.
Well, I'm ready to do it. It's all the fault of a farmer 20 years ago releasing the animals onto the island. So we should try and track that farmer down, I say, for the Monocle scoop.
So listen, Ed, tell us, as you teased at the top of the program, of course, Europe going to the polls today, EU-wide. So I guess a couple of things. I mean, obviously, there's been so much, you called it the kingmaker, the queenmaker story around Giorgia Meloni, what that is going to mean. But if I was to pick up and look at the Corriere this morning, if I was looking at La Repubblica analysis in Il Foglio, what is the mood and the tone right now?
Well, I mean, it is that kind of story, Tyler. It is, looking at what the right will be in Europe after these elections. Italian newspapers, you mentioned some just then, are very much, and this is always the case, really, they're very much interested in insider baseball, the nitty-gritty of what is often a messy political landscape. There's been, quite a lot about Matteo Salvini, of course, the leader of the far-right Lega party. He's been very outspoken, sort of suggesting that he's almost kind of gone back to the Salvini of 10 years ago, even though he is, Giorgia Meloni's deputy in this government. He's been particularly insulting, throwing all sorts of words around for France's Emmanuel Macron. No love lost there. So there's been quite a lot of focus on that. Giorgia Meloni, talk of her sort of slightly bizarre video that she posted just over the weekend with her down her local fruit and vegetable store, picking up a cherry, putting it in her mouth and saying, "Oh, this is so lovely. What variety is it?" And the seller turns around the sign saying Georgia, at which point she winks at the camera. Not the first time she's used fruit as a prop. She, of course, held a couple of meloni, for a previous video she did. So that sort of sums up the tone, the low tone, if you like, of politics here in Italy. But as I mentioned, it really is a question of seeing how much the touted gains from the right and far right in Italy, certainly Fratelli d'Italia, Brothers of Italy, Giorgia Meloni's party, is looking like it's going to make some pretty big gains. And also, of course, over in other countries, including France, where Rassemblement National is set to make gains, probably at the expense of Macron's centrists. So a lot to unpack and a lot to wait and see when the first exit poll comes out very late this evening.
I just want to bring Juliet in here. We were watching the Giorgia Meloni video just before we went on air. You don't have to replay it again. Thoughts or analysis on that? I mean, is it classic? Is it classic Meloni in the sense of playing this way, as you said, Ed, a little bit of a sort of a cute wink at the end of it? Is this sort of in a way, sort of the populist, the populist, her softer side, right? As well.
And I mean, with the melons, that kind of made questionable history. But I'm just curious. Ed,
well, cherries as well. But anyway,
no, I'm curious about the phenomenon of the Lega General Roberto Vannacci that's been covered a lot, and famous for his terrible book that he self-published. I think it was. It is like anti-gay, anti-women, anti-migrant, and everything. But they say that he's probably going to be voted in as an MEP. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, bizarre, isn't it? Yeah, bizarre. He published a book, you're right, Il Mondo al Contrario, the world the wrong way around, sort of a loose translation, sort of basically his tirade against all that is apparently wrong with this woke world in which we live in, and of course widely touted as being anti-gay amongst many other things. The book caused him to be suspended. He is, of course, a General Vannacci, but it was also a bestseller. So it's kind of, it really, I guess, found something with the fault lines that are here in Italy. And Lega, being Lega, decided to make him a candidate, an MEP candidate for them. And like you say, he is popular amongst certain sections of society. And, Lega as a party has seen its star wane. Salvini is expected, his party is not expected to do well. He's sort of lost out, if you like, on the far right to Giorgia Meloni. And so I think, even as I mentioned, the way he's been talking about Macron, it seems like he's willing to do anything to, I guess, get the narrative back, to be in the press, to get some attention. And you can sort of feel that about him. So I think what he's been saying about the French president and what he's been saying, his position, his promotion, strong promotion of Vanacci plays into that as well.
Ed, we have to get on the train to Basel in a moment. Well, actually, I have to say Basel came to us, which is great news. But before we go, for our listeners in far corners of the world, if you had to distill this down to three main issues at the core of this, is it arming Ukraine? How much of this is about, of course, really an assessment of Ursula von der Leyen? What are your top three?
Yeah, I definitely say the war in Ukraine and defense. There's a lot of disagreement about sending arms or not. I have to say that, like everywhere in the world, costs of living is still a big part of this. And I think finally, migration is huge. We've seen a hardening of the EU line with regards to that. And if we see far right and right gains, I expect that to continue on its course.
Ed Stalker, our man in Milan for us. I guess we'll just before we go, we'll of course exit polls. We'll have a view of things at some point late this evening. But this is going to be very much fodder for the globalists tomorrow morning. Correct?
Yeah, exactly. We should get an exit poll around 23:30 my time, and a clear indication in the early hours of the morning. But don't forget, there's 24 days for all these different blocks, these groupings within the parliament to form. So we won't know immediately. Obviously, we'll know the outcome. But we won't know the precise makeup of the parliament for a few days at least.
Great. Ed Stalker, thanks very much for that. It's just gone 20 to 11 here in Zurich. You're listening to Monocle on Sunday with me, Tyler Brûlé. I'm also happy to say that Juliet Linley is here, also Gabe Bullard as well. We're going to be heading to Basel after this very, very short break.
Monocle's free to subscribe daily email newsletters, the Monocle Minute and Weekend Edition, deliver headlines and a swathe of recommendations from our editors, correspondents and bureau. You can also browse a menu of radio highlights and Monocle films. Our weekend newsletters deliver great columns from Andrew Tuck on Saturdays and Tyler Brûlé on Sundays, cultural highs, media diets and far-off newspapers, recipes to cook at home. It's a fun take on weekend living. Head to monocle.com/minute to be part of the conversation.
And you are back with Monocle on Sunday with me, Tyler Brûlé. Just coming up to 10:41 here in Zurich. Very happy to say that Noah Horowitz, CEO of Art Basel, is here. He's made the journey, of course, from the far side of the Atlantic, but now, of course, in Zurich today, and scampering back to Basel because it's a big week for you. Welcome. Very nice to see you.
Thank you, Tyler. Great to be here.
So tell us, this is edition 30, right?
No,
not edition 30.
We 54 technically.
54.
1970, but 30 is 30 years with UBS.
30 years with UBS. Well, that's the important bit because, of course, they're big friends of yours and big friends of ours. But so on that, if you look at what will happen this year, this is always about a level of reinvention. Also, it seems that everybody also, and I'm maybe saying everybody else, other banks wanting to also jump on the art bus as well. For those who are heading inbound, making their way to Zurich Airport to get to Basel, what are the highlights this year? And I would say sort of the things that if you are doing that Basel touchdown, which is come in the morning and you might stay for some in the evening, what people have to be looking forward to?
Yeah, well, there's a lot on view. First and foremost, I'd say we're super excited that this is the first full year under our new director, Micah Kruse. She was appointed exactly a year ago. So she's awesome. She worked with our organization for many years, built up the gallery weekend in Berlin, and has really leaned in and reinvented a lot of the fair. There is an entirely new configuration of parkour, which is our sector outdoors, curated by Steffi Hessler, who's who's the director of the Swiss Institute in New York. So that goes down Klarstrasse, closer to the fair. Just adjacent to that, the Hotel Merian, which is this extraordinary, iconic hotel, is going to feature a great project and an artist bar with Petrit Halilai, who's also the rooftop commission at the Met this summer in New York. So that's super cool. And then we have a new Art Basel shop, Tyler.
Well, I've got, so this is the great thing. So listeners, everyone comes in and I've got the unlimited caffeine box. So very much, of course, in the Art Basel font that we'll all be very familiar with. And if I open it up, there's just a wonderful, and well, I was going to say it's espresso size, but then I asked what coffee you wanted. You asked for a cortado, and it is more cortado size. It's a little bit bigger than, I think, an espresso cup, which is very nice.
Your impeccable attention to detail knows no bounds. Thank you for
but tell us, I always like talking about retail. Tell us about the Basel, Art Basel shop and what's being sort of cooked up around it.
Yeah, well, this is something we've been thinking about for a while, and we've never really leaned into this direction. But as we, and I've now been with the business for about a year and a half, start thinking about our audiences, new things we can do with the power of the brand, we cook this up. So it'll debut here in Basel, and it's something that we're going to roll globally. We're working in the inaugural configuration with Sarah Andelman, who's legendary in the world of concept retail in Paris. She's helped put this together. So it's a mixture of Art Basel branded product, like the unlimited caffeine Cortado mug. But we also work with Christine Sun Kim to do a sort of limited line of apparel and other types of things. Super cool. And then it's also consignment for galleries to put forward books and other editions and collectibles as well. So it's a new way to lean into collaborations with artists and galleries, but also to start doing new things, create different touch points. So
just maybe from a, state of the market perspective, what are your sort of hopes, expectations when people look at room bookings? Is it going to be a real surge this year, bigger and better than before? Because we don't seem to see any softening in terms of global travel. Of course, you attract a specific type of customer on the opening days. Of course, a little bit broader as the week goes on. But what's your sort of assessment?
Yeah, I mean, early indicators are super good. We're seeing increases in terms of pre-confirmations from our VIPs up year on year, which is awesome. It's a Venice biennial year this year, so that certainly helps. You see a lot of museum groups, more international traffic coming in, especially from the US and Asia. So we're expecting super strong attendance as always. I mean, you have to always remember that Art Basel in Basel in Switzerland each June is really the market moment. It really defines the state of where the trade is heading after the big auctions in New York in May. Market's a little softer, a little more unpredictable, but sales are happening at a very substantial pace nevertheless, and we're super excited. And there's a just tremendous amount of art on view as always, and extraordinary exhibitions in the museums as well. So a lot to say.
Gabe, you're in position now as a journalist. I'm not sure how much your various client network, people that you're filing and working as a correspondent for. What does it mean for you? And also just from the pure proximity point of view that you're based there.
Yeah, so one thing that I've found interesting from the flaneur's perspective, perhaps, around Basel, there were two crowds downtown yesterday that I saw. One was people waiting to get in the Rhine once it gets lower and slower. The other was people around the parcours map on one of the bridges, studying, looking where they're going to be going. I think that having it through Klein Basel there is going to be quite interesting and really bring a lot of the locals, a lot of the community as well into this idea and make it known this is happening here. I think that it's a good way to maybe build up some civic pride and let Baselers know that even that there is this thing going on in Messeplatz, but it's also throughout the city. It brings a new energy to the city, and having parcours there lined up along Klarstrasse, I think will make a huge impact.
Juliet, you're nodding there as well.
I think it's brilliant, and it's the Zurich Art Weekend this weekend.
Well, listen, I mean, if you go out front as well, yes. We've done a little project with another bank as well. Well, we can say we're working with Bergos to, of course, promote, of course, this weekend here at the same time. And it's interesting, I think, as well. Just bring you in. I mean, how, of course, Basel, nice airport if you want to get around Europe, not a global hub. But again, it's only whatever, depending what train you catch, it's 55 minutes away. It's super, super close to Zurich, this idea that everything being knitted together, and as you said, in a Venice year as well, that you can jump on the train, get to Zurich from Venice, and then have this continuity across the two. How joined up is the conversation between the two cities? As we know, they love each other so dearly.
Well, I think it's pretty intrinsic. I mean, I've been attending the art weekend here for years, really, since I started coming to Art Basel about 20 years ago. Was at the Zurich Art Weekend dinner last night. A lot of activity. It's a truly global audience that comes through, and I think Zurich has a lot to offer, as Basel does as well. Clearly, just walking through town yesterday, going to all the exhibitions, saw clients of ours from Mexico City, Hangzhou, actually here in your audience just this morning. One of our great collectors, it's an amazing private museum there, and really all over. So there's a lot on offer. This weekend and this week is the kickstart to the summer season, and so we see clients coming in, having a wonderful time, seeing shows in galleries, going to museums, having dinners, lunches, you name it, and it's very special. Obviously, the back and forth between Basel and Zurich is a curious one, but certainly something that from a higher level vantage, I think is an extraordinary asset, actually, in terms of what the two cities can do collectively. And Basel as a city is a city that punches so far above its weight in terms of its cultural offering and what it has, that it has a huge amount to give.
Okay, so you've set me up for a bit of a topic here, and this is something I was thinking about yesterday. Inbound actually from Toronto, and just thinking about the conversation we're going to have, and looking at also weeks ahead. We were talking about we're spending a lot of time in Paris. This will be a very interesting year for you. There's a bit of a rebrand going on as well. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that. Of course, acquisition of a fair, and going back to the font here as well. There'll be a bit of a repositioning, correct?
Yeah. So this is year number 3 in Paris for Art Basel, but year number 1 as Art Basel Paris. We were operating under Paris Plus for the first 2 years in the Grand Palais Éphémère, and we now move in mid-October into the Grand Palais proper, and it's going to be extraordinary. I think this will really reset the global art calendar and provide the signal event in the autumn calendar in Europe for sure, to coordinate audiences and to really work hand in hand with a city that's a city that has no real equal worldwide in terms of its cultural offering, and in the imagination, I think, of artists and anybody that really touches the world of culture. So super exciting for us, and a really neat new platform for Art Basel that will be both similar to, but I think quite differentiated from what we do in the other cities.
But if I'm the mayor of Basel, if I'm the head of economic development, if I'm the head of tourism, should I be nervous? Because it's one thing for Art Basel to be present in Miami. It's something else for you to be present in Hong Kong, where you're talking about 10 hours flying time from both places. But here you are, a 3-hour ride on the TGV from Basel to Paris. Okay, yes, there's many months in between, but is there suddenly just a lot of too much overlap? And we know there's an excitement about coming to Basel because it's a bit of a pilgrimage. But should Basel be actually worried as a brand?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I take the point, and obviously this is coffee table chatter the world over. Everybody loves good competition, but I don't really see it in that way. I think Paris is a city that's just extraordinary in so many ways, but Basel as well has an extraordinary offering. And I think when you start drilling down to the details of what the fair is, what the offering is, it's quite differentiated. In the Grand Palais, and we just announced both the new name as well as the exhibitor list a few weeks ago, we're not even at 200 galleries in the Grand Palais. It's an extraordinary venue, of course, maybe the greatest venue anywhere to exhibit art in. But it's quite small relative to the offering in Basel. And then when you stack the core Messe, where the fair is here in Switzerland, and then the Unlimited Hall, which is another 200,000 square feet in Parcours, I think the experience is very different. And I think that for our visitors, for our galleries and their artists is super important. Basel is a pilgrimage. People are going to spend 2-3 days. Every touch point basically is a touch point with our galleries, with artists, with art lovers. Paris is different. It's a global city, some of the greatest hotels, restaurants, not to mention museums in the world. And I think as this balances out over the years, I think we'll see it rebalance really beautifully, actually. And I think, if anything, it's going to make the city of Basel stand on its toes a bit more. I think some of the initiatives we're seeing with Hotel Miriam, with Parkour, we've got 2 boats on the Rhine this year, Tyler. If you want to stay for a night in Basel, you can stay on a Rhine boat, which is a cool new thing we're doing as well to up the ante in terms of hotels and rooms. And of course, the toggle between Basel and Zurich is beautiful. A lot of our clients stay here in Zurich, take the train or a car over day to day, and it's same different. And I think for our clients and for audiences, it's going to work out beautifully well in the coming years.
I want to go back to the retail side of things, and it's fascinating how this can come to life. Do you see it as something which pops up with the fair, or is it's just you mentioned, of course, having Sarah on board. Of course, Sarah's for our listeners was the creator of Colette, and amazing that she's of course part of this. Is there going to be a permanent home?
Good question. We'll see. It's certainly in the early stage. We're at MVP stage right now, right? So this is, let's see what people take to, what works. We're certainly going to start doing this at all our shows on a global basis. And as that gets up and running, we could well see a permanent presence. And that's something that we're thinking as a business, right? The brand of Art Basel, what we do, we work with Art Week Tokyo in November. We have lots of conversations going elsewhere. Our content, digital, social media platforms are, millions of followers now. So how we create meaningful touch points that are content rich, that really lay into the, this idea of powering the world of art and creating opportunities for everybody and all those touch points is something we think about daily as a business. And, I think there's certainly a point in the future, perhaps not too distant, for an Art Basel shop somewhere in the world.
Well, also you touch on the coffee table chatter about what it means for Basel with Paris. I think just having come back from Hong Kong week before last, also with our bank friends as well, the discussion around Tokyo, because a really fascinating art market. I think a lot of Japanese a little bit not annoyed, but just so much attention around Seoul, for example. So maybe that's another fascinating one to watch as well in terms of what can happen in a market like Japan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you look the world over, what places on planet Earth have the sort of dreams and minds of artists? Is Paris and Tokyo are pretty much at the top of the list. And so there's a huge amount of potential, obviously, there. You have Naoshima and other places outside of the city as well that are extraordinary, one-of-a-kind destinations that show art from the best possible light. So ample opportunities.
Juliet, are you moderating or doing anything, or are you playing host in for anything at Art Basel this week?
I wish.
No?
Fortunately not.
No.
But I did enjoy yesterday going around with my daughter and seeing some of the installations around Zurich. And we saw one great one with Federica Hutte, the gallerist that she's been on Monocle a few times. She showed us around, and it was made from recycled materials, which is very much the buzzword, if you want. And it was at the recycling plant of Mr. Green, your big sacks that you fill with all the packaging and everything. So that was fun. And it was fun to show the younger generation how fun art is, how creative it is, and the bonkers things that artists do that are just like, wow.
And this is the first time taking Kaya?
Not the first time.
Not the first time.
It had to be combined with having a matcha along the way.
Yeah, of course. Gabe, just, you touched on, obviously, seeing people already in this prep state in Basel already. I don't know. Have you seen, of course, the floating hotels already pulled up riverside?
I haven't studied the hotels. I have been monitoring the river closely because we have had this wet weather, extremely high. River traffic was stopped for a few days last week, which I know put a dent in some of the tours and everything. But glad to see that there's going to be some boats on the river.
And you just said this is purely an accommodation play, right? Because also you said a lot of people shuttle back and forth from Zurich because there's just there's only so many rooms in town. Is that part of what you had to deliver?
100%. Yeah, I mean, when we start looking at our business, it's not just about the art in the halls, although that's fundamental and unwavering, but it's also about what's the offering. and there is a shortage of hotels in Basel relative to Paris, Hong Kong, Miami, and so bringing that in and bringing a few hundred additional 5-star hotel offerings is a new thing. And I think this is all credit to having a focused, singular director at all our shows. Micah's been amazing. Has had a bevy of ideas, and these are a few new things that have come through that this year. I should mention that we started last year with the city of Basel a Rhine swim for our exhibitors on Sunday, so that's today. We had to call it off last week because
of the speed of the river.
Yeah, the speed of the river, and there's branches. So that's a shame, but that's a fun one. And I go swimming as I did this morning here in Zurich every day, and it's a fun one. So.
Juliet, you're looking upset that you're missing the Rhine swim this morning.
Of that Rhine this morning, exactly.
Probably
but I'm
a little chilly.
Probably a little chilly.
But here it was not that chilly.
No, I mean, listen, it's got that sort of humidity in the air as well today, so that's a component to it. I'm hoping to get down to a little bit, hopefully lakeside, a little bit later. Juliet, very good to see you. Maybe we'll see you even next week, or
for sure.
Who knows, right?
I'll be here.
Could be. Gabe, great having you on the program.
Yes.
Lovely premiere. Thank you very much for, of course, jumping on the lovely SBB.
Always.
Fantastic having you on the program as well. Good luck this week.
Thank you.
And
come visit.
We will, absolutely. Maybe on the TGV on the way back from Paris on Friday. That's all the time we have for today. Also, thanks to Andrew Tuck, Ed Stalker, and of course our producer today, Marielle Lebevan and Emma Nelson. Our studio manager here in Zurich, Linus Vivian, and also Marielle looking after the audio back in London as well. I'm Tyler Brûlé. We're back next week as well. And as we said, also, we have our big Swiss summer market in Zurich. Zurich going to London in 2 weeks' time. So we'll see you then. Have a good week. Goodbye.